Hey, welcome in. It's This Week in Radio Tech. On this week's War Stories episode, Rich Parker shows us a backhoe fade in Ketchikan, translators on Prince of Wales Island, and he hikes the Blueberry Trail to meet a helicopter on Pederson Hill. Chris Tobin is along with us, and Rich Parker on this episode of TWiRT. This Week in Radio Tech, episode 310, is brought to you by Lavo and the Crystal Clear Virtual Radio Console. Crystal Clear is the console with a multi-touch touchscreen interface. By the new Telos VX Prime. VX Prime is the affordable multi-studio talk show and on-air phone system for smaller facilities. And by the Axia Fusion AOIP audio console. Fusion is the Axia modular console packed with features and capabilities refined from over a decade's worth of IP audio experience. Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack, your host, and I'm delighted to be here. This is the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to the light bulb at the top of the tower, and a lot of bits in between, a lot of ones and zeros nowadays in between. I'm delighted that this is a War Stories episode. Every 10 episodes, we try to get together with a guest and talk about, working in the trenches, either literally or figuratively, and, stubbing our toes, burning our fingers, slicing our hands, whatever it takes. Yeah, occasionally getting a little bit shocked, and fixing things and learning how they work, and not doing that again the wrong way, but doing it the right way. And that's what we've been talking about. That'll be kind of our theme here. Our show is brought to you by the folks, in part by the folks at Lavo. We'll get to their commercial message in just a moment. But first, let's bring in my co-host. He's in a like a Chamber of Commerce day up there in the New York City area. Chris Tobin. Hey, Chris, welcome in.
Hello, Kirk. Yes, it's a great day. Sunshine, blue skies, puffy clouds, and people are exiting the city and heading out to East Hampton, South Jersey Shore, and everyone having a great time. You can't beat the weather, and this weekend should be a lot of fun, so don't lose a finger at it, though.
Yeah. So you mean people are leaving now and not planning on coming back to work on Friday? Is that the deal?
That's correct. I will tell you that my observations have been, for the last 2 years now, holidays that occur on the weekend or on a Monday, people now seem to take Friday off, and Thursday is their travel day.
So they're not working much Thursday either, or they leave early.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow, boy, tough to be an employer and get some output, every day when you got all these holidays.
Some place, as long as you get the job done, then you're fine.
We've talked a couple times about that. I'm part owner of some radio stations in American Samoa, and look, I'll just say it because it's true. The government employees there have pretty well figured out how to take every Friday off or Monday. Every Friday or every Monday is off because they celebrate, for example, but today is the Cook Islands Flag Day. We have to take off to celebrate with our comrades in the Cook Islands. And it's just every weekend, it's somebody's thing of some island within a couple thousand miles of American Samoa. And so, every work week is, and I got to believe people grumble when it's a 5-day work week because it doesn't happen very often.
Well, I'm of the mindset if the job's getting done, so what? You take the day, you enjoy it. You're not losing anything. I've had the pleasure of working with some really talented engineers and managing some engineering departments, and I used to practice that. And when I could see that things were going well and we didn't have anything crazy happening, I would tell them, you know what, it's 3 o'clock, head home. It's Friday, get out of here. It took a couple of months for it to settle in, for people to realize that it's okay to do that. But yeah, and then you know what? It came back. It came back many times when we needed to do some work that required overtime, and these were contract represented employees. And I'll tell you, never had a problem asking somebody if they could stay late, extra 2 hours overtime, where in the past they would grumble. They would be like, yeah, you know what? No problem. Got it.
Gotcha.
They would actually step up. They actually call me and say, hey, we hear there's something going on this weekend. Will you need people? I'm available if you want. Just let me know if the budget permits. 6 months earlier, it was like, I'm not. I don't want to do it. I have the right to say that, the contract. So there's something to be said for that.
Good way to manage people that way. Hey, let's bring in our guest. Rich Parker is here from Alaska, and I'm going to guess he's in Juneau. But Rich, you tell me. Hey, welcome in.
I am in Juneau this week, sitting in the office. It's actually kind of bright outside, so I had to put a piece of cardboard up over the window. But yeah, it's been really nice and sunny and warm until today. It's a little bit cloudy and rainy, which is more normal.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we're going to be talking to you in just a few minutes about some engineering daring do, and the things that you find at Coast Alaska. That's where Rich is the director of engineering at Coast Alaska, a group of radio stations up and down the coast. So hang on. We're going to get to War Stories with Rich Parker beyond the Yukon in just a minute. Our show is brought to you in part by the folks at Lavo. Lavo, makers of the crystal clear audio console and more. Everywhere you go, you're going to find touchscreens, and there's your smartphone, for example, your tablets, of course. Supermarket checkouts now have touch screens. Laptops are coming with them more and more. And so do the radios in new cars. Even airplane cockpits have touch screens. Touch screens make sense because they're simple and natural. Their intuitive controls help you finish tasks faster and with fewer errors. Isn't it time you brought the power of touch into your radio station? Well, you can with the Crystal Clear Virtual Radio Console from Lavo. Crystal Clear gives talent an instantly understandable multi-touch interface. Faders, meters, clocks, timers, talkback, and more. They all live in harmony on a single screen, so shows run smoother and sound better. Crystal Clear features Lavo's exclusive Auto Mix, the hands-free, smart mixing algorithm. It's designed for fast-paced multi-mic talk shows and auto gain. Just push a button and the preamp calibrates automatically while your guest speaks into the microphone. They can be loud or soft, and the gain sets automatically. Talent can then, because there's so much automation going on here, talent can dock those mixing controls to the side and use their screen to do other things like working with delivery systems or audio editors or phones. Crystal Clear's power plant measures just 1 RU. It's pretty amazing when you consider the amount of DSP on board. Compression, EQ, voice processing, and precision delay can be applied to all of your mic, line, and digital sources. Optional upgrades include redundant power, MADI, and Ravenna AES 67. And all of this power costs no more than you spend for an ordinary console. If you're thinking about a new console, don't decide until you check out Crystal Clear from Lavo. You can go to www.lavo, that's LAWO.com, and read about it. You can call Bill Bennett at Lavo USA if you're in the USA. By the way, Bill's gonna be coming speaking to our SBE group here in Nashville in a few weeks. Bill Bennett, I think next 2 months from now, is going to be our guest. Bill Bennett, Lavo USA. His number is 888-810-4468. That's 888-810-4468 to find out more. The future is clear. It's Lavo Crystal Clear. Thanks to Lavo for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, let's jump right into it with War Stories. Rich Parker is here, and Rich, you are the person of interest here, so we're going to let you just jump right into it with stories of your radio stations.
Well, thanks, Kirk. I appreciate being here, and Chris, it's always fun. I want to clear something up. I don't believe we're actually beyond the Yukon. The Yukon's far north of us. I just want to clear that up. Although I guess we are west of the Yukon.
Yeah, I looked at a map, and from Nashville, from Nashville, the border, you're beyond. So I thought, okay, I can say beyond.
I'm just teasing. It's kidding. But I cannot see Russia from here. Although I work with a gentleman who's from Little Diomede, which is an island way off of western Alaska. And he actually can. He actually can. The island that they can see across the channel is actually a Russian island, so it's kind of good. Anyway, enough of that.
Oh, it's got to be clear that it was Tina Fey. Tina Fey said that, not the other lady.
Yes, we know. Yeah, everybody reminds me over and over again about that. The song from Alabama. In Alabama, they love the governor. Well, it's like that here. So. Yeah.
So,
they love the governor. Yeah.
You're with this outfit called Coast Alaska, and you I guess a lot of your programming comes there from Juneau, but then you've got translators and full power transmitters and such. Why don't you give us the little elevator overview of what you do there and what it's like?
Okay, well, actually, Coast Alaska is a service organization for the affiliated Coast Alaska stations throughout Southeast Alaska, and they all maintain their independence. They have their own programming, their own boards, their own board of directors. They have managers. But what Coast Alaska does is engineering support, financial back-end support, finance, all those kind of things. So they don't need to have a finance person. The bills are paid through Coast Alaska here. In the past, there were several engineers, out throughout the Southeast Alaska. Chuck Lukatis, an old, I don't mean he's old, but I mean an old Alaska head who's here for 30 years, can tell you about how many engineers there used to be to take care of these stations. And now it's pretty much me and people that I can get to help me. We have a director of IT that helps, and he's learning engineering stuff. And I'm learning more IT stuff from him than I even knew before. So I'm based in Juneau. My office is in Juneau, and we're at the station at KTOO TV and radio. And they have a number of translators, one in across the channel, which is known as Lemon Creek, then one up on the hill, Pederson Hill. We'll talk about that later. And then they also have some out on the islands, Gustavus and Excursion Inlet and Hoona, so those are quite a bit of ways. And those are small translators out in the islands that surround us. And that's pretty much the same situation for all the other stations. KRBD, where I was last a couple of weeks ago, is based in Ketchikan, but they have a translator south of town where it goes around the bend and you can't get the station. They have a translator north of town, same situation. They have a translator up above the airport on what's called High Mountain. It's technically, I believe it's called Mountain Point, or what's it called? It's called, anyway, Clover Pass. I'm sorry, Clover Pass. And then where I was last, a couple of weeks ago, we flew out to something called Prince of Wales Island, which is an island pretty much due west of Ketchikan. The only way to get there is either by a ferry or a float plane. We took a float plane. Those stations, that island has a translator in a town called Craig, which is where we landed. There's one in Port Higgins. I'm sorry, Port Higgins is on the other side. There's one in Thorn Bay, Heidelberg, and Klawock, Klawock. Klawock. So we were. This came about because. Anyway, so this is the way that all the stations are. The station in Sitka has a number of translators on small islands. The station in Petersburg has translators, and the station in Wrangell has translators. And so there's basically 5 towns, 7 stations, because there's 3 stations here in Juneau, and then there are a number of translators. Now, a couple of weeks ago, sort of the genesis of this, I guess, war story, the translators that were on Prince of Wales Island were put in place by some of my greater peers and predecessors. Matt Holmes, Chuck Lukatis had something to do with those. Julia, I'm going to have a brain freeze and I can't remember her name, but I'll think of it probably after the show's over. A number of people that I find their names on documents and I find their names on logs and things, who were able to do a lot of work. And a lot of that work was done 6 to 8 years ago, and there has not been anyone that visited those stations in probably at least 6 years, which is a credit to the original installations, but started to see some problems. What happened was, the first thing that happened was that Klawock went off the air, just completely off the air, and we couldn't get it back on. And they said that kept blowing fuses when they tried to turn it on. And by the way, I've said this before, but we have a lot of very helpful, volunteers, people who are competent. I mean, some of these people are fishermen, loggers. They're very tech savvy in their own way, and once you explain to them what needs to be done, they're very capable of doing it. They may not be radio engineers, or they probably had to fix a cable on a boat or something in a storm or whatever. Yeah. So they looked at these. They looked at this one in Klawock, and there was just nothing we could do to get it on the air. So I had to ship it back, and I had another Crown here that we use as a backup, and I shipped it down to them, got it tuned to the right frequency, and they put it in place, and that seemed to fix things. I spent some time on the phone with Crown, very, very helpful. Don Pettiford, just a great resource there, and determined that probably what was wrong was some MOVs had blown on the input. So I had those ordered from DigiKey, sent directly to Ketchikan. They were waiting for me when I got there. But I arrived at noon, and so I wasn't really able to get those put in and tested before we had to leave on the float plane at 4 o'clock. So that was the first thing. So then we also found out that there was problems in Heidelberg, and the lady there's a lady named Jody who's quote unquote the secretary, right, for the city hall. It's a native village, a very beautiful area, and she was extremely techy, extremely helpful. I talked her through how to open up the end connector. I always get it wrong, but it's like a clamp type, screw-on type. take a look, kind of clean it out, because it had just come out. It had completely come out of the back of the radio. These are Crown amps they were put in. They had a circulator, and then they went up to an antenna, usually a GP, FM, or similar. And so I talked her through getting that back together, and they were on the air pretty much okay. So our task was to go over to, so I took I went over to Heidelberg with we flew to Craig on a float plane, and then we started working on those stations. So the reason that there's a folder of pictures, and it's called the KRBD Ketchikan STL cable backhoe fade. The reason that's first is because I was just a day or two from getting on the plane when the general manager called me and said, "Oh my gosh, we're off the air. They're digging in the yard next to the building, and they dug up our STL cable."
Hey, let's see if we can bring those pictures up, and you can tell us about them as we look through here.
Yeah, so that was the backhoe. If you could flip ahead a little bit or back, I don't know which. That's kind of after. I'm sorry about the order, but just keep going through there. Okay, so that's kind of where it was. If you get another another one, you'll see where they.
It looks like it was almost 2 feet down, 2 feet under. What were they? What was their goal with the backhoe? What were they trying to do?
Okay, so there it is. That's the terrible, heartbreaking shot. So years ago, a previous manager had worked out a deal with the city. They got what was called a temporary authorization to run cables from the station underground over to what's called the bus barn, the tram station barn, because the building where the building where the station was located, it didn't have line of sight to the transmitter site. So what they did is they ran this cable. They got permission to put the 950 STL up on the bus barn, ran some LDF4 underground, and everything was great. It was in conduit. It was supposed to be 2 feet deep. Well, the bus barn started having some problems with water. There's a quarry next door, and they started getting problems. So what they were going to do is regrade the entire parking lot and change the whole slope of it. So without, I don't want to push off on anybody, but the general manager did her due diligence. She gave the clerk of the works or the head of the bus barn the plans that showed basically where the conduit was and all that. Through we don't know why, we don't know what happened, but he never shared those with the excavators, and that's kind of the end. That was what happened. So regardless, there's lots of finger pointing, lots of blame to go around. Everybody's upset, and it was one of those things that was done on a kind of a wink and a handshake and a nod, and nobody sort of finalized it, and it's just one of those things that happens sometimes. So they dug this up. So I'm trying to get ready to go to Ketchikan to fix this translator, and I'm like scrambling around trying to find. I got a roll of LDF4 that was about 50 feet long, and I had some connectors. And one of the board members was worked for a cell company in the past, and he was quite competent. He felt very confident that he could put it back together. So I got this all in a box, and I ran over to the airport. They have something called Gold Streak here. So it's an air cargo on Air Alaska, and Gold Streak you pay an extra 30%, but it says must load. In other words, when it gets to the dock, they don't care what else is on the plane. That has to get on. Everything that's Gold Streak has to get on first. Yeah. So they got that down there, got it to Ketchikan. They had to take the ferry across the channel to the airport because, as you recall, people probably know about the Bridge to Nowhere. The Bridge to Nowhere from Ketchikan actually was not a bridge to nowhere. It was actually a bridge to the island where the airport was. But anyway,
okay.
So that became quite a political football. But anyway, so they took the ferry over, got the package, put it together. The gentleman was able to hook everything back together and get the SL back on the air. So here's the tricky part. We had a barracks box feeding the audio, and we had one at the transmitter side, and we thought, oh, well, this is great. We can feed the barracks box audio over to the transmitter side. There was a DSL line there. It was perfect. It was a great solution until they turned off the STL to repair the cable. Yeah. The station went off the air. So it was just baffling to me. I was like, what? This shouldn't happen. There was nothing in the wiring. There's nothing that could have happened. So we talked over, and they just said, look, we're just going to take the station off the air for an hour on Saturday morning. We're going to tell everybody to fix the cable and put it back on. I said, okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting on the plane. I'll be there, first thing Monday. the end of the story was that they got it fixed, they got it back up, and they were back on the air. And when I got there, this is after the translator trip, I went out to the site, and I started following wires and looking at documentation and things. And it turns out that the previous engineer had done this really great, really clever thing that I probably would have done, and it was a emergency way to shut off the transmitter. And that was as if it lost RF from the STL, it would trip a relay that would run a macro that would shut off the transmitter. And since we did not know that was there, when they turned off the STL to try to fix it, then they lost. They just simply did a failsafe, grounded the failsafe, and it went shut off the transmitter.
Yeah. So
that's something that I need to get into and figure out how exactly did he do that. I've got pictures of all the wiring, and just kind of come up with another command set that sort of disables that macro or that function if they need to go to backup. So that was how things started. And without getting too personal, my mom had a really severe stroke. My wife flew out literally the day before I flew to Ketchikan to go to Vermont to help my brother get her settled, move out of her house in Vermont and move her to Seattle to assisted care. So it was just one of those crazy, crazy weeks. But anyway, so I got there.
Hey, on this, when the backhoe was digging and struck this, I'm guessing that you being almost the only engineer for the whole place, and I realize you got good help from volunteers, but there was nobody who was available to go out and mark the parking lot, right? That just wasn't available.
Well, that's a good question, Kirk. I really don't know. I mean, the general manager had felt like she had done that. She had given a pretty significant plot, site plan to the essentially the building owner, the building manager of the city, and that's kind of just disappeared somewhere into his office. We don't know what happened. So
I'm just looking for some takeaway, and see, because you're not in Ketchikan, you're in Juneau, and this happened in Ketchikan. Yeah, right? So it wasn't like you were there and you could have, if you were paying attention, could have stopped the backhoe. So you're depending on people whose job it normally isn't to make sure these things don't happen, right?
Yeah, it's a tough one because I literally did not know they were doing the work until I got the call that they were off the air.
Yeah.
And I think that it actually kind of took the general manager by surprise. I think they brought the backhoes in, dumped them out, started digging, and
when you first said that the transmitter went off the air when they dumped the STL, I was thinking, maybe the backhoe struck the decoy LDF 450. Maybe there's the real LDF 450 somewhere else, but no, that's not. You actually were on the backup barracks. But the transmitter, I'm a little confused. But
we were on the STL, and then they cut it, so we went to the backup barracks.
Okay, yeah.
But see, remember at that point, we couldn't get it to come back on because there was no audio. There was no signal. So they patched it back together. Well, see, what happened is this is really complicated, but they managed to it was bent like almost 90-degree angle. I mean, the LDF4 is not meant to do that. I mean, it's rigid. So they sort of pulled it out, straightened it out, and kind of just taped it back together. And believe it or not, it actually stayed on.
Oh, okay.
It was, so that's where we were kind of, there's kind of it's not a very good picture, but that's kind of where you can see on the left-hand side of that picture where they just sort of grabbed it together, came out of the conduit, they taped it together, tried to get it back together. And there was enough signal there that they could, it's a very short shot, and it might be a mile, not even a mile.
Gotcha. It'll almost work with a paperclip out the back.
It would have, and so that's the problem is that it was a bunch of red herrings, a lot of false things. Okay, so they got it back on, it works. Okay, well, let's switch over to the backup, and we did, and the backup worked. Okay. I mean, we knew there was audio because we could see the audio going through the barracks box, we could see it was going to the exciter, and this was all great. It was not until we actually shut off the STL radio completely that it triggered in the GSC 3000, it triggered a set of commands that basically it's a BE3C or 5C, and it just basically grounded the failsafe pin.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
It took us right off. It was just one of those things that nobody expected. Nobody had seen it. It wasn't really well written up. Maybe I should have seen it before, but I hadn't. So
So it sounds like there's really not a learning takeaway here other than, hey, it's nice if you document everything so the people behind you know what's going on. But, when you don't have, engineering people there on site when, big machinery is doing stuff, it can cause a problem. It's a risk you take with a smaller staff is my takeaway. If you had, a semi-engineer there on site who could have been standing out there with the backhoe and looking at that, wait a minute, you guys are really close to this. Then,
oh yeah. And of course, I don't think it occurred to them to use DigSafe or anything like that. I mean, I don't really know what their procedures were, but I'm pretty sure DigSafe would have found that conduit. I mean,
do they have some kind of detectors that they wand over the parking lot?
Well, they're supposed to. It's kind of like a metal detector. I mean, they should be able to see a buried cable. I mean, the thing to do, I think that what they've told us is, especially with fiber and stuff, you put like a tape. It's like a sort of a metal mesh tape over it, about 6 or 8 inches above what you're trying to protect, and then they see that.
But, because if you had a buried fiber, you wouldn't have much return on anything. It's glass.
Yeah, you wouldn't. So. And I mean, like I said, this is exactly what you said. It's a small station. They've been through a lot of engineers. I've been here 2.5 years, and I still feel like I'm just always having those, I told you before, those Bob Seger moments. I'm just working on mysteries without any clues. I mean, it's just, I learn a lot, Well,
and it's also interesting to I'll bet you can almost detect if you see a project that some previous engineer did, and then you see another project kind of like it. I mean, you can guess. I'll bet you, Bob did this too, and not that it's bad, not that it's good. It's just it is what it is. Engineers have their favorite way of getting things done. I want to, Chris Tobin. You've been so quiet there on the rooftop. I'm guessing you can sometimes piece together. Oh yeah, Bill was here. I see. This looks like Bill's work.
Yes. I worked at a market where I followed 2 longtime legacy engineers that had their own way of doing things. It was that infamous, I guess I could say it's infamous, no documentation, don't tell anybody what you're doing, and you've got job security. Well, of course, we know that doesn't work. And I stumbled across 3 radio stations in the market that I worked at, and every one of them had the telltale signs of those guys. And the directors of engineering for each of those respective group-owned stations would call me into the office and go, look, we don't know what was done, we don't know how it was done, but we're having these issues, and every time we try to fix it, it gets worse. So if you can do something, great, but just know this going in. And you're sitting there going, great. The boss is telling you that you might just set off a booby trap if you're not careful, and the programming people will be very upset. It's like. But I will say this: the one thing that I always get not caught on, but people I work with will get caught, is the classic. The American Wire standard is black is high, red is low, but all of us know in the industry we've always gone with red high, black low. Yeah. And I can't tell you how many recording/broadcast studios I have been in where people have followed the black high, red low, and then all of a sudden we're trying to do a recording or a broadcast and there's phasing issues. And someone goes, what the devil's going on? I go, I got a pretty good idea what it is. Quick, give me a cable, switch it out, then we take it apart, look at the XLR and go, yep, that's what I thought. And I still to this day come across that at events, and it's the wildest thing.
Wow. Hey, we got more KBRD stuff coming up, guys. Translators on Prince of Wales Island and Ketchikan. Stories about that, and a lot of cool pictures that that Rich is going to share with us in just a minute. But we've got to take a quick break and tell you about the folks at Telos. By the way, you're watching or listening to episode 310 of This Week in Radio Tech with Chris Tobin, my usual co-host, is here with us, and Rich Parker from Juneau, Alaska is here with us as well. Rich takes care of a whole bunch of radio stations spread out over an area big enough that, well, you got to take a plane to a lot of these places, and a lot of times it's a float plane, so there's pictures coming up of all that, so hang on. Our show is brought to you in part by the folks at Telos, and a brand new product just announced today. The press releases went out. It's getting published in the press. The website is up, and here's what it is. It is the new Telos VX Prime. Now, it's new, but it's not exactly new. Maybe you're familiar with the Telos VX, and that's a multi-studio, multi-line VoIP phone system from Telos, and honestly, it's meant for bigger stations, right? It's probably not economically an obvious choice unless you've got at least 4 or 5 studios to replace the phone systems in. And I know that a lot of smaller stations, especially, for decades, we have purchased and installed and replaced phone systems on a studio-by-studio basis. Hey, Studio A needs a new phone system. Hey, Studio 3 needs a new phone system next year. And so we thought about it that way. We haven't thought about it holistically as a whole station solution. And so the folks at Telos, my employer, the folks at Telos said, we need to have a lower cost option for stations that if you have 2, 3, 4 studios and a production room or 2 and maybe even a news booth, we want to make a phone system that makes sense for that size facility. And they did. It's the Telos VX Prime. Just add the word Prime to VX. So if you go to the Telos website, telosalliance.com, there's a picture of it. Now, it looks exactly like the VX, but here's the deal. It's limited to 8 hybrid outputs. Now, you can have as many phone lines as you want. You can have, literally, you can have 100 phone numbers coming into it. And if you had 8 studios with 12 lines each, well, that's just about 100 right there, almost. So you can have 100 lines coming into it and 96 lines assigned to 8 different shows, but only 8 fader outputs. We call them hybrids. Technically, they're fader outputs. So what is this right for? Well, it costs several $1,000s less than the original Telos VX. If your radio station happens to be a live wire facility, well, you're home free. You get the Telos VX Prime. You get a few of these VSET phones. I've got one right here like this. There's a 6-line version and a 12-line version. For a lot of folks, the 6-line version is just fine. And you plug those in. It's all networked. You bring it up on your console, and bam, you got phones on the air. If you're not a live wire radio station, then it's still pretty easy. You just get one of our inexpensive Telos multifunction nodes. This gives you analog out, AES out, analog ins. It's perfect to put a couple caller voices into the console, to get mix minuses out of the console to go into this Telos multifunction node. And if you need program on hold, which you probably will, you probably have a different program on hold for every station. That's fine. You can put a different program on hold in there for every station. And you get some contact closures too. So if you need to light a light up when the hotline rings, you've got that. And you've got that in every single studio. So whether you're a live wire facility or not, the Telos VX Prime is very appropriate. We've got a brand new video on the Telos Alliance YouTube channel. It's a 12-minute explainer. Joe Talbot and I made this video to explain about Telos VX Prime, and I highly encourage you to watch it. Think about, okay, so time to replace a phone system in one studio. Think about, let's go ahead and do it for all the studios. Now, the big rationale, why? Because you're going to switch over to SIP voice over IP when you do this. And in doing that, in switching from POTS or ISDN over to SIP, you are, depending on how you do it, there's lots of options, you're going to save anywhere from 50% to 90% off the cost of your phone lines. There are stations within 10 miles of me right now that could save $1,000 a month right now by switching from POTS over to SIP. And so that's the impetus. You got to have the equipment to do it. The Telos VX Prime will do it for a smaller facility, and you switch your phone lines over to SIP, and bang, like they say in Canada, Bob's your uncle. Please check it out at telosalliance.com, the Telos VX Prime. All right, episode number 310 of This Week in Radio Tech. It's a War Stories episode. Chris Tobin's here, and Rich Parker is here. Rich, can we jump right into this Translators, Prince of Wales Island and Ketchikan photo montage?
I tried to reorder those just a little bit. If he just reloads that tab, it'll probably come up in the order, I think. Just reload the tab, maybe?
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
I'm reloading mine at home here, but
it's fine if he doesn't, but I'm just saying if he reloads the tab, it'll bring them up in the right order. Yep, that's right. There you go. So
okay.
Let's look on that first one. That first one there is the inside of the crown. That it's just a quick shot. And the reason I mention this is because that those particular MOVs, and next to them are some sort of inrush current limiters. And what's interesting about that, and Don said, yeah, he agreed with me, they were covered with the heaviest, elephant skin shrink wrap. You couldn't see anything. And so I had to cut that off. And in the process, I inadvertently clipped one of the inrush limiters. But I was able to get it back together. But the thing that's interesting about this is that, again, Don was just a great resource. I ordered the MOVs. I was worried about that inrush capacitor, and current limiter. And he says, if you get in a pinch, all you got to do is just take like a 20 amp slow blow fuse, and it'll probably do just fine. So it's nice to know that there was workarounds. The reason this is such a big deal, that was such an easy fix. It took me, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to fix this. But it was, an hour and a half away, or they'd had to ship it to me. And then I had, there was no way that I could get to it because it was on the island. At least they were able to get the tech who worked at the phone company to take it out, bring it to the airplane. The airplane brought it back. They had brought the one that I had shipped already brought with them. So they were able to give it to a guy, and he drove his truck over and put it back in and got it back on the air. But it seems that the things that we think sometimes are just really fairly simple, straightforward jobs become enormously complicated. And if you look at that next picture, just real quick, yep. So that's that's an Otter. We're in the inside of an Otter. It's a float plane. I'm taking that from my seat. The entire side of the airplane is completely filled. Just completely filled. With stuff that's going out. It's everything from toilet paper to it doesn't matter. Everything. I was amazed. It was really kind of funny. The number of Amazon boxes. That was great. It was like there was just like a dozen Amazon boxes on the plane.
Wow. So and with an Otter, I guess if you can fit it in the Otter, then it'll fly with it.
Oh yeah, it's an amazing plane.
What's next?
So next, this is Maria Dudzak. She's the program director, but she's also been to the SBE engineering school or seminar in Alabama, and she's trying to learn tech stuff. So the manager sent her down with me, and we brought some tools, and she was very, very helpful in getting some stuff. And that's just my ugly mug sitting in the plane.
Now, in that plane, does everybody wear a headset? Passengers?
Yeah, you can. You don't have to, but they say it's just noise canceling if you want. It plays music. You don't have to listen to the roar of the engines. So.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so it's so I don't know. So the next shot is just a picture of the plane as we landed. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful plane. It's an Otter, been converted to turbine.
So it's got probably a PT6 engine in there. Yeah. That's very common for those.
Yeah. So the next picture, I think that this is useful, and I don't know if it's possible to blow that up at all. I don't know. You might be able to, but that is basically where we were. So you can, if you look and you can see Craig and I don't know if you can actually read it, but here's Klawock right here. Craig there's Heidelberg down at the bottom. You maybe zoom back just a little bit. Heidelberg is down at the bottom. And then you'll see Craig, which is, I guess, in the upper, I always forget where it is, but it's kind of the upper part. And then you have to land in Craig. And then you see there's towns called Thorn Bay. And this is a better picture, but this is a picture that was in the airport. But it just gives you an idea. We flew into Craig, landed, drove to Klawock, drove to Heidelberg, turned around, drove back. We did not get to the one in Thorn Bay, nor did we get to the one that was at the north end of the islands. But it just gives you an idea of how difficult it is. And these are communities this is the other challenge, is we're trying to provide a public service, right? But these are communities of, 300, 400, 500 people, maybe 900 people, and so it's not like they really can fully support, through listener contributions and all that. And we're the only radio service for them. So in the past, state and federal funding has been very, very important. It's in a fair amount of jeopardy now, and that's a philosophical question I guess a lot of people, need to grapple with. But the fact of the matter is we were the only ones. We provide emergency alert. KRBD is the EAS, local primary for that area, tsunami alerts and those kind of things. So, it's a pretty important service. But anyway, so
what's next?
Around, there's places where there was no cell service. It was just crazy. It was, great, yeah. So let's see what's next. Okay, so this is the Klawock site. This is the AT&T building. There's a tower. A lot of the sites there we were able to share with AT&T, which is nice because they have technicians that come out of Ketchikan, not real often, but fairly often, and they've been pretty nice. You can click on the next one. That's just a shot of the tower. They're very, very helpful. Rhonda will change fuses for me, or take a look at something, or check some readings, and that kind of thing. And everybody here is pretty, they're pretty good about helping each other.
With these cell towers, do they get infrastructure to the tower site typically by microwave? Is there no land-based T1 or fiber going to these sites typically over the air?
I think it's mostly microwave at this point, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's interesting is that the audio for these stations is actually on this sounds crazy, but it's on a copper equalized line. It comes all the way up from Ketchikan to Lena Point, which is just north of here, and then goes back. So it's an 8K line. And part of the reason is because there isn't really robust enough internet service yet. It's getting close. It's almost there. But that's the way it's been. So it's this 8K mono equalized line.
Yeah.
So if you look at the next picture, you'll see, this is only interesting to people who have been in phone company buildings, but you can see there's a backpack and there's some things, and they have there's like some, sometimes they just stay over, because there's not really like a lot of places to stay. There's not a lot of places to eat, and you have to be really careful. So, so anyway. Some of those one of those might be ours, but you can see a spectrum analyzer there. There's, these buildings are solid. They're locked up, but there's a significant amount of tools that are in there because they have to get, they have to ship them by air.
And for those who haven't seen them before, those racks. That if we take one more look at that picture, those are they're telco racks.
Yes.
Broadcasting, our racks have the rails in the front, and you screw the equipment in at the front, and then all the weight hangs in the back unless you've got rear rails and a rail system. But with these racks, everything's kind of in the middle of the center of gravity of the equipment that goes in them. But those are telco racks. Chris, in broadcast, do you ever use telco racks, or are they always standard broadcast stuff?
No, we use the open frame telco racks in a couple of places I worked at. We were doing a lot of fiber work years ago, and worked with the local phone company, bringing in DS3s. Yeah, so we put them in the telco racks because we needed the space. With the footprint where we were working in the room, just didn't allow for a standard EIA rack. So yeah.
So it's not unheard of. So Rich, do you ever mount your gear in telco racks?
Say again?
Say it again?
Oh.
Yeah, Chris, I wonder if you ever mounted any of broadcast gear in telco style racks.
Yes, absolutely. In a couple of shared locations, co-locations where we all shared a room, so the space was tight. Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
And I meant that for both of you. Rich, how about in your locations? Because that just seems so odd to me.
Yeah, it is. If they flip past like two pictures, they're both the same, but one's a close-up. You can see what I walked into.
Okay. We'll watch. Picture. There it is. There we go. Oh!
Yeah. So,
nice.
So now here's the thing. So, everybody goes like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. But this was like a volunteer who was really trying to help us. Guy was probably a fisherman. This was the new translator that I took to him. He tried to get it in. He had no idea kind of how those racks worked and all that. And he got it in. And they were back on the air. That's kind of, it's like that's the kind of thing that you kind of go, well, it's not optimal, but man, there's nobody there. There's nobody else there.
Yeah.
And I couldn't be there for like 2 weeks. So it was really, quite a, it was amazing that it was on and it was working. We were able to, pull it out and remount it, dress up some wiring and some stuff, and then, mount it in the rack, the way it should be. There's I guess 4 or 5 pictures up, there's a picture of the circulator. It's like on the ground now, mounted against the thing and not hanging in space with its whole weight pulling on the cable. That kind of thing. That's just the kind of thing that happened, and it was. There's no like real reason for it. Yeah, flip ahead about 3 pictures if you can. It's just the Comrex. You can see that how it a little bit more. Yeah, one more maybe. One more. Yeah, so that
there's the circulator.
Yeah, and this all became. This was all part of a project that was a grant funded project maybe 6, 8 years ago, 10 years ago. And one thing I learned, I had never actually used these little circulators, and I wasn't sure why they had them. Their thinking was that if I don't know if it was like snow or icing or something, and I wasn't sure how much they really got in those areas. If it detuned the antenna, obviously the circulator would help the transmitter not fold back so badly. But the problem is that this was all done when the antennas were these FMOs and they were a little bit tighter. Now, mostly they're using GPFMs, which are pretty broadband. They really don't need the circulators, and I think it probably would be good to take them out, because the piece that you'll notice, and I just learned this, so this is the kind of thing, I learn something new every single job, every single day. I had never used these, but not only did I never use these, but I didn't realize, but these things throw out tremendous amount of second harmonics, just naked like that. And what you're supposed to get from EMR is another little filter that's basically a bandpass filter for that frequency that notches out. Now, fortunately, where we are, there's really no one else. There's the phone company, and there's so it's not huge implication, but it could be. If say we were like 107.9, we could be getting up into 215 or something. So that's just something I have to look at and go, well, I understand why they did this. I understand that the people that were doing it, some of them were basically the same way, learning it as they went along, and that's just how it is. So anyway, that's the kind of thing that'll come up here in just a minute.
What's next? What's next in this series?
So we got Ketchikan, and we went to Heidelberg. Let's see.
There's that circulator. A fire.
Yeah, that was across the street from the. That was actually, I threw that in. That was actually across the street from the apartment that we were staying in. So this is a former board member. She owned a bed and breakfast. She had an apartment, 2 separate bedrooms, a kitchen, very nice. And she was able to give us, accommodations in trade that night. And that was about 11:30 at night, right there, that shot. So
what?
Yeah, it's about 11. It's about 11:30. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! How do you go to sleep? Close the shades.
Yeah, I know. I think I've told you. I told friends when I moved here. I said, I got to buy an alarm clock. And they go, why? You can't get up? I go, no, I need an alarm clock. Tell me when to go to bed.
Yeah. I was going to ask that. What does your body feel like at 11:30 or midnight at night, and the sun's still up, and your brain says you're supposed to go to bed about now?
Kirk, you would know this. How old's your son?
It's 5.5. Yeah. Okay.
And does he want to go to bed when it's in summertime? Dad, it's still light. Dad.
Yeah.
I don't want to go to bed now. It's no different.
Okay.
You're like 5 years old inside still. You're just like, what? It's 11 o'clock. It's still light. I could fish a little longer. We could do more stuff.
But then the sun's back up at 2 or 3 in the morning, right? Or maybe almost never.
Yeah. No, it's starts getting dusk, kind of around 1:32 it starts to get that same kind of brilliance in the sky.
Now, the same thing happened the same thing happened to me at a big meeting in Latvia. The sun finally went down about 11 p.m. and I stayed up for another 3 hours, and then next thing I know, it's 4 a.m. and the sun's back up again.
So, I know. So I don't want to go through these really quickly, but the next picture is the city hall, and this is the antenna. Oh, go ahead forward. You're fine. That's the antenna that's on the city hall.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Where are we at?
And then this is the crown with the DTM. What's the DTMF 8 Plus? Is that a remote control of some kind?
Yeah, and that was something that was put together by the previous engineer. Back up one slide. I want to explain something here. This circulator was on a piece of I think it's LMR 400. It was hanging down, or maybe it was a 214, and it was just hanging, and the entire weight of the circulator was like basically on that cable.
And those things are heavy because they've got a big magnet inside, right?
They do, and so it just eventually pulled it out, and that's the thing that we talked Jody through, kind of replacing that. The DTMF Plus, this is a really interesting thing, and this is something that they put together, and it never got implemented as much as they wanted, but they're very cool because what they would do is if they felt like they needed to shut down a translator for any reason, they would just simply send DTMF tones over the air. And each translator had, a set of sequences to turn it on and turn it off. So in an emergency, they could turn off those translators using a DTMF tone. So it was very clever. They don't use it now, but it was one of those things that it's kind of interesting.
So the lesson learned there is kind of like if you've only got one channel and you've got to do something in band, so to speak. Hey, that's what we used to do for decades with subaudible tones, right? 25 hertz, 35 hertz, and combo tones. We would, a satellite network would that didn't have a data channel separate from the audio. They'd send those subaudible tones along and make stations do stuff with that information.
Wait. Were those supposed to be subaudible? I always heard those. They were supposed to be.
If you're a mutual affiliates, they used to call them B-doops.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Sure enough.
Live with Larry King. B-doop. Larry, local commercial.
So anyway, so that, and then, so then a couple of things, I don't want to embarrass him with the power, but the village, there's a totem pole park, and that's the high school that's near there. It's a lovely village. So, yeah. So anyway, we got that back on the air. Kloak was on the air. We're at Heidelberg, which is way far. And then coming back, here's the other thing, a lesson learned. This station in Heidelberg is on 90.1. And we go through pretty, like a valley and a pretty, rough terrain, and you lose cell service and all that kind of stuff. And then we come into Kloak, which is also on 90.1. But once we got them both on the air and at full power where they're supposed to be, you realize that there was this amazingly huge interference zone in between them. Granted, it was in the middle of nowhere where there wasn't anybody, but it was on the road. And so, someday, some happy day, it'd be really nice to apply to change those frequencies so they're not, right on top of each other, and probably extend that coverage all the way down, from Kloak to Heidelberg. I believe we could do that now. So this next picture, so we got everything done. We felt pretty good. Everything was pretty tied up, and we thought, well, all right, so Craig, this is where the float plane takes off from, and we were going to leave at about 5 o'clock, and we got to Craig, and we thought, well, you know what, let's just go look. Back up one there. Back up a couple of shots. One more. Yeah, right there. We got to Craig, and we said, well, nobody's complained. It seems like it's on the air, but, we're here. We got 3 or 4 hours before the plane leaves. We get some lunch. Why don't we go up to the Craig site and just, touch it, say we looked at it, see how it looks. And this is what we found. It's supposed to have a TPO of 100 watts. I didn't bring the shot of the SWR, but it was like, 1.9 or something crazy like that, or 2.15. It was just insane. And I just looked at it, and I reached up. So the next shot, I think the next picture, is a circulator sitting on a metal cable tray. And I don't know. Our physics aren't quite good enough to know, but I'm not really sure that that's supposed to, that's a good thing for a circulator to be sitting on a metal tray like that. It's a much hotter. Anyway, that thing was just blazingly hot.
Oh, okay.
It was like,
but it was probably underrated.
Well, I don't know. It was, it had a 60 ohm, a 60 watt load. I mean, you wouldn't think all of the power would be coming back. It had the cooling fins on it, but the problem was, as I said, this is really bad. So I shut it down, took it out of the circuit. I bypassed it, and I have a little Enritsu 2711D. It's fine for what it is, and I have a little like a poor man's bridge. It's 20 dB coupler, and I was able to shoot that thing, and it was like tuned to, like, for whatever reason, like 103, 104 meg instead of.
Oh, it was off frequency. Yeah, okay.
And I don't know if it's just because of the heat, it got damaged, I don't know. But I mean, as soon as I took that thing out, I mean, bam, it just went 100%. Everything was happy. There was almost no vismor, that's just the kind of thing you just never expect, to see. Did
that circulator have tuning capabilities, or was it fixed?
It does. In fact, I brought it back to the bench here, and well, here, I don't know. Is this okay to do this? I don't know, Kirk. Here, let me see if I can do this. There's my rig set up right here. I've got it on the bench, and I've got my spectrum analyzer there, and there's a little T somewhere. It's like moving the camera's like all backwards, but anyway. So I have it tuned, and if you could, there's not enough resolution to really see the screen, but if you can see the screen, you see that it's just a lovely, about a 40 dB or more notch right at 1017. So yes, I was able to tune it. EMR actually has a really nice white paper on their site, about exactly how to do this.
Yes, they do.
And what I thought was really great about it was that, it says, well, you can use a network analyzer. And you're like, well, who's got a network analyzer? And they were like, oh, no problems. Here's the other instructions. If you at least have a marker generator, and a spectrum analyzer, And they take you through, go through it this way, go through it backwards, tune this, tune that, change this port to that port, change this, and it's amazing. It didn't take very long to get it retuned. It was quite a nifty thing. So we got it tuned, and you can see that. I think one of those pictures that's got a contrail in the back, but there's a picture of the antenna. Let's keep going forward. That's back at 100%. Oh, go back. I guess we were too far. That's all right.
What is that?
Oh, I'll tell you in a second. Go back one more.
Okay.
Go back one more.
There you go. That one?
More. Go back now. One more. That's after it's fixed, so everybody's happy. Well, one more maybe. No, okay. I guess I don't know where that picture is. There's a picture of the tower, and it's got the antenna, which is a nice, GPFM, fairly broadband. So I wasn't too worried about taking the circulator out. Is what the point is there. So anyway, so what is that? I had to take a picture of that. That is...
that red thing, the outdoor red thing.
Yeah,
you can see that again.
That is an old generator.
Ah. Yeah?
Yeah. It's, I don't know how old it was. It was obviously diesel powered, and it ran a very inefficient, coil and everything else. But that was probably the main power for the town of Craig for many years.
Wow.
Wow. I think it's called Fairbanks Morse, if that name rings a bell, if anybody. There's a company that made those. So you can see the rotor and stator and all that. It's just amazing. I just looked at that and I thought, that is just incredible. So here we are. Next shot is just, watching our ride come in. Which is just fascinating, and load everything up. You can just kind of flip through those, and there it is. There's all. I just took a picture. Look at all of those Amazon boxes. Isn't that just amazing? All those Amazon boxes.
Wow.
And there's the next shot. This is to give you an idea of how well they take care of these planes. If you notice that, I don't know if you can see that date. It says 1/12/60.
60. Oh, 1960. I was going to look up the N number on that plane. 409 Papa Alpha.
Yeah. Yeah, serial number 409 from 1960. Now, obviously,
from 1960. Wow.
But the standard airworthiness certificate is very, very current. These guys are great. Taco and Air, I tell you, you cannot. They're just amazing. Those guys. Just the people that fly around here are. They're really good. They've been here for a long time. The ones that do it know when to. When they say know when to hold them, know when to fold them. Know when to walk away. They just say no, not going today. Because they've seen it all. So just the next couple of shots are just the ride home. You could if you want to flip through those, you don't have to. But
yeah.
And then the very last transmitter picture is the one that's in Higgins, Point Higgins. That's an old TTC that was up there and running at 10 watts and a watt reflected, which, just like I just said, I didn't have time to deal with it right then, but it was working and, but that was one of those cases again where there was a tag on it with somebody's name from like 6 years ago saying like, oh, this is a backup. The other ones were taken out of service. Next picture is one of my favorite things to remember. You see that pair of dikes right there?
Yeah.
To the best of my knowledge, they're still there. I climbed up and used them, and then I'm pretty clear that they're still there.
Well, they'll be there when you come back.
Yeah. So that was kind of the rig. That's how they set it up. And but the thing about this is that what's significant about that is that there was a really beautiful crown sitting in the shop underneath a bunch of stuff, and it didn't come on. So I opened it up. And again, got on the phone with Don Pettifor, and he goes, "Oh, okay, what's it doing?" I said, "It stays like the SWR light stays on. I can't control the power." And he goes, "Oh," he says, "You got it open?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You see that little square circuit board that goes between the metal where the RF section is and the rest of the thing?" Oh, yeah. He goes, "Check those connections right there." And I did. Sure enough, those connections were bad. And he says, "It's just if it doesn't get the sense from that connection, it does that." And he goes, "It's a really common problem." So I cleaned those up, and those all work great now. And that transmitter is ready to go, and we'll probably take it out to the last site on here, and I know we're running short on time. But
hey, I'll tell you what. You've convinced me of one thing. We're going to have Don Pettifor on the show if he'll come on,
yes,
and detail a lot of things about Crown transmitters.
He is just an amazing resource, unbelievable resource. So anyway, yeah,
we got a quick commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll have time, Rich, for just a couple of pictures from the Pederson site. So if you can think about the top couple of pictures for that, we'll do that. Hey, you're watching or listening to This Week in Radio Tech, episode 310. It's a War Stories episode. We're hearing from Rich Parker about engineering at some really out-of-the-way places where just a few hundred people are served here and there in Alaska. It's part of what Coast Alaska does for all these little independent radio stations. Chris Tobin is along with us as well. Is sitting comfortably on a beautiful Chamber of Commerce day in the New York City area, and I'm Kirk Harnack. Our show is brought to you in part by the folks at Axia and the Axia Fusion audio console. Oh, my goodness, I got to see a couple of these consoles when I visited the Universal Studios Broadcast Center in Orlando a few weeks ago. And they have replaced their Element consoles with these Fusion consoles. These are so beautiful. They just feel like, well, they feel like modern day tanks, right? They are built so sturdy. The end caps are metal. The top is metal. The silver part that you see there, where the top of the console, basically the silver top, that is all metal, and it's all what we call it's laser etched and double anodized, and that means that the markings on the console will never wear off. They can't. So you don't have Lexan on this console that can, be peeled up or picked up or people can mark on it. This console, you need to clean it. Just take a rag to it and wipe it off. It's just amazingly well built. Of course, the Fusion console is available in any size that you want. You're seeing various pictures go by there. On the screen, you can make this thing customized. You can have a double frame if you want. You can have a small frame as few as 6 or 8 faders on the smallest size, or as many as something like 28 faders on the biggest ones. And the faders you have to choose from, well, you can get a 4-fader module, a telephone control module, an intercom module. Of course, there's a monitor and navigation module. You can also get fixed film cap buttons or smart switch buttons. Just all kinds of modules are available to go in here. You can even put blanks in for future expansion. So hey, we're going to use this studio in the future for something bigger, but we're going to save money now and keep a couple of modules out of it. It's so flexible what you can do. And of course, the stuff behind it is the software that runs this Axia Fusion console. It's amazing what it can do for you. We could do a whole show on the features of the software that makes it a console, that makes it do all these amazing things, custom things that, as engineers, normally we would want to, or we'd have to build a little bud box or a blue box, if you will, or bring in a third mixer to mix something together or to split something. All these kind of features for splitting and mixing, for custom back feeds going to remote sites, customized recording feeds so that things get recorded exactly how you want them for easy editing. All that is built in now to the options and features in the console. The Fusion console has an external power supply, or it can plug in to the Axia power station. So you have some different options as to exactly how it hooks up in your studio. A lot of options there. You just need to go to the website and read about this console, look at the pretty pictures, and see, hey, what's your next console that's going to last you 20 plus years? It's a Fusion from Axia. The website, telosalliance.com, and then click on Axia and look at the Fusion console. Of course, if the Fusion is too big for you or just too rugged, there's other consoles as well. There's the Radius, there's the Element, there's the IQ console, and then there's the diminutive rack and desk consoles as well. A whole plethora of consoles. Hey, I've got them. I use them. So does Universal Studios in Orlando, and literally thousands of other radio stations around the world. There are well over 6,000 Axia consoles out there now. In fact, you're hearing one right now as we're talking through an Axia Element console at the GFQ network. Check it out at telosalliance.com. Thanks, Telos and Axia, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, we just got a couple of minutes. Rich, let's buzz through a couple of final pictures here real quick. You want the Pederson pictures?
Yep, Blueberry Trail being the first one there, I guess. Yeah, you could just grab. Yeah, so that's the that's kind of the site. You might, I don't know if you can reload that tab. We can go through an order, and I'll be in the same. There you go. Same. Yeah. Okay. So you have to hike up to this site. You can take a helicopter up, of course. But what we did was this particular project, we had KNGW was bought by CSN, which is Christian Satellite Network. Used to be known as Calvary Chapel. They had some differences of philosophy, and they separated. And so they're their own division, and they take care of stations. But they bought this. If you look at this, let's see. Sorry, Kirk. Let me see which one. Yeah, right after that rack picture. There's a tower there, and that shows their antenna right after that picture. That's the rack room.
A couple of yeah.
Yeah, so those are those Nicoms, and this was something that was put up by somebody else. So believe it or not, there's one station on the top, one station below it, and they're way too close together. And it's just one of those things that I just
think, they are.
How in the world did that happen? How in the world did that happen? But that's the kind of stuff, that goes on. The next picture you can see there's our tower, and it's got our FMs are on the very, very top, then a cell panel just kind of like crammed up in there. There's a couple of Yagis that are going to come down. There was another commercial broadcaster that said he just couldn't stand being up there. And below that are some TV antennas for broadcasts. And then in the background you can see the FAA tower. That's it's a very interesting. If you go on the FAA tower site, camera site, you can find those cameras that are on that tower and look all around.
Really?
You can.
Oh wow.
Yeah. You can look all around our. You can't really see our site, but you can see the very, very tip top of one of our antennas. So anyway, he flew down from Idaho, the young engineer, Dustin, and he about 30 years old, and he did a really great job. Pulled out a bunch of old equipment, put in some new equipment. I was extremely jealous. Some David, Davicom remote control, and all, because they have hundreds of stations, so they use this Davicom stuff all over the world. So I don't know. Let's see if there's. I'm trying to. You can flip through, but I don't. If you see something that strikes your fancy, pull it up. But there's cell sites there. There's cell people there. They've left equipment that we've had to kind of tear apart. But near the end of this sequence, you can see the landing pad. I think, Kirk, is where the helicopter lands, and that's where we stage all the equipment. Brought the equipment in, and these guys that fly these helicopters, as you can imagine, are just amazing. He was able to. Come in and
I'm not sure if that's a landing pad or a trampoline. Which is it?
It is a landing pad. And it's got okay. I know, right? It's got nets around it so that if you were to kind of slip and fall off of the pad, you'd have a kind of catch you a little bit. But it's but you can see our towers in the background, and it's not very big. To give you an idea of the scale, if you go ahead about sorry, I had too many duplicates in here. About 5. You might be able to see from the whole, sorry, Kirk, from the, if you go back to the main, the main page and just scroll down to the bottom, about the last 5 or 6 pictures, you can see the helicopter.
I'm looking for it. I see the pad without a helicopter. I don't see it with the helicopter.
Oh, so, yeah. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so there you go. So that, so this gives you. It's the scale. This is a standard, commercial helicopter. It gives you an idea of the size of that thing, and having to land, on that platform.
The first time you flew there, the pilot says, "We're going to set this thing down on that post stamp down there."
Exactly right, and you're just like, really, you're gonna do that? Well, and the thing is that in some of the other pictures people can look at, we won't take our time now, but if you'll look at that, that's a video of the, sorry, that was me. There's a picture of him in that sequence of him setting the satellite dish, the 6x6 box with the KU dish down exactly on a small square pad in between all the antennas.
Wow.
It it was just unbelievable. So anyway, that's just to give you an idea. It's a very crowded site. We spent a lot of time up there documenting. Again, this is something that I've inherited, trying to find out what we can take off of there, what cables can come off of there, what needs to happen, and get the best thing. So it was a beautiful day. It was just unbelievably gorgeous day. There's some pictures there you can see, but it's not always like that. It's kind of gray and cloudy today, but we were very fortunate. So,
Rich, we are out of time. We got to skedaddle here, and I wanted Chris Tobin often puts together a tip for us. I just wanted to see if Chris had anything. If not, I've got a real quickie tip for the end of our show here, Chris.
Sure. The Whirlwind Q Box. I mentioned this a long time ago. It's a portable speaker, amplified speaker and headphone, XLR, 1/4 inch. You can plug into it to check audio real quick. The reason I suggest that is recently I did a broadcast from the Microsoft store in New York City, and we were distributing audio across the broadcast itself, and the PA system wasn't properly working, and these guys were like, "Wait, we're not getting audio." I was like, "Wait a minute." Unplugged the feed that I was giving them, plugged in my Q Box. I said, audio's leaving my box, my table. I don't know what to tell you after that. It leaves here. So just as a quick Q Box, Whirlwind, it's a great little guy. It's handy when you're doing remotes where all of a sudden somebody says, I don't hear anything. You can plug in real quick and go, you're right, you're not, and it's not because of me.
I will put that a link to that in the show notes, Chris. Thanks for that quickie. Rich, I'm going to come back to you in a second. Think about, Rich, if you would like to publicly share those albums, I'd be glad to put them in the show notes. So it's up to you if you want to share them or not, and I would put the link to them. I got a real quick tip here before we have to go. When you order something from one of these Chinese outfitters, it takes so long to come in that you forget that you ordered it, right? So I ordered. I spent $12 and got 2 digital voltmeters. 2 for $12. They were $6 a piece, and I've been playing with it, and I'm kind of impressed. What I like about this digital voltmeter is that it's got a backlight. Ta-da! Stays on for 30 seconds. That's one of the hardest things for me is to read an unbacklit LCD. It's tough. But you push the little button there and you get backlight and you can see it. And I don't know, does it work? It measures all kinds of stuff, diodes and resistance and AC and DC voltage. And it's got a place to plug in transistors if you still have transistors that have the possibility of plugging, have leads on them. So I got that from wish.com, wish.com for $6. And it took about a month to get here. Rich, would you like to make these photo albums available or any pictures?
Yeah, we can do that. I'm probably going to go in and take a few out just because they're redundant, but I don't have any problem with that.
Listen, I'll hook up with you in the next 24 hours, and we'll get the links, and I'll put them in the show notes for you.
Well, great. Well, thanks, Kirk. I really appreciate you asking me to be on. It's always I learn a lot, and I hope everybody else does too.
I love your attitude of hey, let's get the donkey out of the ditch. Let's fix the problem, and then let's clean the site up and see what we can do to make it more reliable in the future. And I think that's a great attitude to have. You're not the kind of guy that looks to go place blame. That doesn't do any good anymore. Let's just get it right and make it reliable, and understand that a lot of your help is not getting paid, and they're not experts. So if it's on the air, it's doing good. So.
That's true. And I want to add to that, Kirk, that this is not in any way a disparagement of anybody who went before. I realize that there are times when you're just trying to get something on the air and get it done. You're like, the plane's leaving in an hour.
Yes.
Or the ferry's leaving in 30 minutes. And it's like you just go, I'm sorry. It just has to be this way until I get back here.
Yeah.
And then it might be a year till you get back or more.
In American Samoa, we've got put up with some of the same stuff, but these are even more remote sites. Hey, got to go. Chris Tobin, thank you for being with us. Beautiful day there. I appreciate your participation, and thanks for showing us a beautiful blue sky in New Jersey.
It's a gorgeous day. I'm going off to the park, to the beer garden across the way, and going to have a great evening.
All right. And Rich Parker, your evening will last about all night long, I suppose.
Pretty close, yeah. We have just a little trivia about Juneau. The fireworks are midnight on July 3rd, so that's when it gets dark enough. So they start them at midnight on July 3rd.
How about that? All right.
They bring in the 4th with fireworks. So
that's pretty cool. I appreciate it. Thanks to Suncast for switching and producing our show This Week in Radio Tech, and for Andrew Zarian, founder of the GFQ Network, where you'll find plenty of other fine podcasts. I appreciate you joining us, and our website is thisweekinradiotech.com. Hope you subscribe, tell your friends, and we'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye, everybody.